It's 8:45pm on Wednesday, the 24th of May 2017, and this is the Cats Whiskers Podcast live. Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Cats Whiskers Podcast. My name is Jono Bullard and I'm delighted to say, joining me to look at all the Panthers news, the CHL draw, the Elite League news and discuss the Nottingham Lions are Tina Taylor.
Hiya.
And Andy Haywood.
Evening.
Evening to you guys. We will also be talking to former Panthers netminder Miika Wiikman a little later in the show, and also Nottingham Lions coach Matt Bradbury about their step up to EIHL 1 North, which is the level below Panthers. But first, we are going to discuss all the Panthers re-signing since our last show 3 weeks ago. And we'll start with Robert Farmer back on a new multi-year deal. Has not been said how long it is, and Tina, that was good news to start the ball rolling.
Yeah, it was a little bit of unease. Yeah, I mean we went to that Q&A with Neil Black, and he sort of was under the impression that all the Brits were already tied up onto deals, but obviously that wasn't the case, at least with Robert Farmer. So showing him the faith of putting that multi-year deal in front of him, whatever it is, which, FYI Panthers is a little bit cryptic. So, what exactly is the problem with announcing how long this deal is? But yeah, it's good. He's had a good couple of seasons with us, especially the last couple of seasons, and he's done the rounds and he's done a bit of a tour and he's gained experience from everywhere, and we seem to be reaping the benefits now.
Andy, your thoughts on Farmer?
Well, I made no bones about it. I think he's probably in the top 5 Brits of the past couple of seasons now. I think it's a massive signing for us. Mainly because it means that he's not playing somewhere else if he wasn't going to be with Nottingham. It was one of the things I said when Matthew Myers went to Cardiff about why it was such a big signing for Cardiff, was because not only did they get better, but it made us a lot worse. With British players, you have to look after them, and certainly Robert Farmer, like I say, is in my opinion, probably just scraping the top 5 of the Brits around at the moment. So it's a huge signing for us, especially with it being a multi-year deal, however long the multi-deal is for.
I was particularly pleased to see him back. I think he's certainly the best British player that we had last season, and probably the best player we had overall last season for me. So I was delighted he came back, and I think it's really important that he was tied down to a few years rather than just a rolling year contract, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it's massive, that, and I think it's no surprise that not only us, but I think quite a few teams do it with the Brit players, because they're such a important commodity in the league. So I know Sheffield have done it before with O'Connor and Dowd and Phillips and people like that, and obviously I would imagine that someone like Mark Richardson is as well. And I just think it's massive, because it means that you don't have to worry about having to find new Brits or start a core of a team over from scratch, because your core comes from your British players technically.
The next signings that were announced were that of Steve Lee, Robert Lakovic and Ollie Betteridge, who all continue on multi-year deals. And Tina, I wasn't aware that they were on multi-year deals, but it seems that they were. And these ones, Betteridge's side, probably had a bit more of a mixed reaction.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, we've probably discussed long and hard about the. I don't want to say, for want of a better way of putting it, sort of the dwindling impact of Stevie Lee. It's not that he's a bad player, he's not, but he's not the same player as he was a few years ago, and understandably so. He is still a good quality Brit, and he's, I personally would have been upset to see him go. I mean, he is a good player, and we've got nobody waiting in the wings essentially to replace him until maybe sort of Tetlow gets up to standard, perhaps. So I mean, for me, I'm definitely in the Stevie Lee camp. I wanted him to stay. I can't believe for 1 minute that he would have wanted to go. So that's sort of one of your bread and butter signings, really, if you ask me. Lacko, what do you do about Lacko? I mean, he's great, and he's turned into something of a penalty kill specialist, but he really needs to put some more points on the board. I think that is a lot of what people have, in terms of an axe to grind with Lacko. I think it is purely, it's points. There's opportunities where, and possibly on Lacko's part, so maybe a bit of a loss of confidence, because there's been times where. And I saw it in the GB games as well. He's lined up and he's in a perfect position to shoot the puck, and he just passes it on, and it drives you mad. You want him to be a bit more selfish, and that's not really his way. But I think Lacko, he knows the team. He's comfortable, possibly maybe a little too comfortable, but points. The lad needs some points on the board, definitely. And Betteridge, he got more minutes last season. That's an absolute given, and he's getting better. There's still room for improvement. But he's what, 20? He's got time. And he's got the gift of good quality players around him that he can learn from. Like last season he had some good guys he could pick things up from, and season before it's a learning curve, and he seems to be a bit of a sponge, which is good to see. So whilst our Brit pack may need a bit of tinkering in terms of the way that some of them play, I think essentially we've got a good core, and I mean Lee and Lacko and Farmer, you could still sort of class them as youngish Brits, I suppose. They're not they've been playing for long enough to maybe get a veteran status, but they're not actually veterans yet, so there's still lots of years left in them. So the multi-year deals, them continuing on the multi-year deals, FYI Panthers, very annoying. But yeah, the multi-year deals is a good sign that we're sort of that we're working to retain a good Brit pack. I mean, I think I've said it before recently. We're not a development league, but we have a responsibility to make sure that we keep the British game developing. So it starts with the Brits.
Andy, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, again, with regards to Lee and Lakovic, obviously they seem to. Well, I would say they split opinion, but it seems probably the last season or so that they don't anymore. Almost, it's so sort of negative towards them, and I appreciate that. It's you look back at how they did play and things like that, and I can understand, that. It is frustrating, but I think people have got to. Some things that people have got to look at is if you get rid of them, who replaces them? First of all, I mean, we talk about some of the players that have been with teams for a long time. Realistically, they don't usually decide to up sticks and move on. So there's that, and I still think as well. I mean, particularly Steve Lee with the defence. Who is better than Stevie Lee as a Brit defenceman? Obviously, Ben O'Connor, is in my opinion on his own as the best British player. I think he's a different class to everybody else, and I think you say Mark Richardson. I think that's fairly comfortable that Mark Richardson is. And then, to be honest, I think then it's much of a muchness. Obviously, Batch is good, but I think his size is a big factor in his game because he can be so physical and he's so big and strong, which obviously is great for Cardiff. But realistically, O'Connor's not going anywhere. Richardson's not going anywhere. So it's trying to find these players that are going to replace someone like Stevie Lee if people had their way and we got rid of him. And he's made mistakes for sure, but I do think that as far as Brit defencemen go, I still think he's probably top 4. And I think we'd be crazy to just let him go. And Tina touched on the confidence thing with Lacko. I think something that needs to be looked at this season, in my opinion, with regard to him, is I'd like to see him get some chemistry on a line again. I don't think he's had any sort of chemistry, whether it's his fault, somebody else's fault, or the other players' fault, Corey's fault, whoever's fault. He hasn't had chemistry on a line since Francis and Lee Salters, in my opinion. And that was the last time we really saw him, being as good as he was. I still think he's probably one of the more defensively sound players that we've got, and obviously Tina mentioned the penalty kill. But I just think that if we could get a couple of players that are speedy, perhaps one of them's a playmaker, and stick them on Lacko's line, I'd like to think that we might see the Lakovic of old next year. And Betteridge, he's got a bit of work to do because, again, give it a couple of years' time and people will be expecting an awful lot more than what we're getting at the moment. Similar to Lakovic, I imagine in 2-3 years' time, people will be looking at the points and saying, is it enough? But at the moment, last season, particularly with his extra ice time, he certainly didn't let anyone down, and he's a fantastic player to have, and certainly one for the future. But I just think that obviously, we can't get too carried away with him. We've got to let him progress and not put him under the spotlight too much, because we want him to be a Premier Brit player, but we don't want to sort of suffocate him with expectations so early. So, I think it'll be. I think it should be a good season for Betteridge because obviously he will be classed as now. He won't be a veteran, but he will be classed as a sort of mainstay British player for the Panthers because of last season. So it'll be interesting to see how he sort of developed his game over the summer and how he's utilised next season.
David Clarke was announced as returning for his 14th season as Panthers as the player assistant coach once again. Tina, only one word to describe Clarkey, and that's legend.
Yeah, pretty much. What more can we possibly say about David Clarke? Just to coin a big old cliche, he's looking to the future in terms of his career. I think he's still got something to say in terms of wearing a Panthers jersey. The only thing I would probably say about David Clarke is, given the last couple of seasons have been a bit bitty and bobby in terms of the injuries that he's suffered, I think we're sort of entering into the stage where we've got to manage his minutes a bit more. I mean, I don't think he can play the minutes required of like your top line. He's still got that top line quality finish in him, but in terms of the amount of minutes that you're going to get out of David Clarke, I think there has to be an amount of management on that. But I'm happy to see him back. He's going to learn a lot from Corey Nielsen and Rick Strachan as an assistant coach, and that's obviously the route that he wants to take. So good luck to him in that respect, and let's see a few more David Clarke bombs in the back of the net, as it were.
Andy?
Yeah, I think one thing that really sort of hits home for me with regarding Clarke is that year that he went to, was it Liège he went to in Italy?
Yes, yeah. 2007-8, yeah.
It just felt really weird. And it's something that, ultimately we're going to have to get used to eventually, but, I'm just happy that it's not of a moment because, it's a word that gets branded around an awful lot these days, but he is a legend. And I think without a shadow of a doubt, that number 5 jersey will be hanging from the rafters when he retires. I think he,
absolutely.
Without a shadow of a doubt, he is the next person to get his shirt retired by the club, and rightly so. I appreciate that obviously there'll be a lot of cries for the usual suspects like Zamek and Strongman and Simon Hunt, but I think realistically the club have, whether you agree with their reasons, they've given reasons why they aren't. I think realistically that number 5 jersey will almost certainly be hanging from the rafters, and in my opinion it should be hanging from the rafters the day that he decides he's had enough, because he really has been an absolute pleasure to watch. He's been a fantastic leader, he's been a fantastic ambassador for the club, and I know a lot gets sort of jokes about over the last season, particularly about players being nice guys, but he's one of life's good guys, and he's been without a doubt probably the best goal scorer, British goal scorer that I've seen in the Elite League. I think you have players that are far more well-rounded than him, but I just think that he is the sort of premier Brit goal scorer, and I think Tina's right as well regarding minutes. I think it's no sort of shock. I don't think that obviously he's looking at the next stage of his career with the whole coaching thing, but I just think that realistically you can utilise him as a winger who gets regular minutes, don't get me wrong, but it's sort of tailored back a bit, but you stick him on the power play, and you utilise him there so that he's fresh for those type of opportunities, and hopefully we keep him fit for a whole season, because I certainly wouldn't want to be playing against that shot if I was on the opposition team. So let's try and keep him fit for the full season, and I look forward to seeing him wearing that number 5 shirt for as long as possible.
Yeah, I put on Twitter that I was delighted that he was returning, because for me he's still in the top 5 Brits in the country. I think there's no other natural goal scorer like him, and he's a guy who will get you important goals, and he knows where the net is, and I would hate him to be playing somewhere else in the Elite League. I think he's an incredible asset for us. Like you say, Andy, he is one of life's good guys, but he is an ambassador for the club. He is someone that you can put out there, and he will represent the club brilliantly. And I am so pleased that he's back, and I hope he's back for many more seasons to come, as long as his body allows it, because I still think he's a quality player.
I certainly think that probably, even if you say 3-4 years down the line, you could utilise him like we did Weaver. Play him on reduced minutes, but stick him out on the power play. He's a Brit he's a Brit at the end of the day, and there's no sort of major restrictions on how many Brits he can have. So, I just think that, like you say, so long as his body allows it, and so long as he's happy to do it, I think he should be with us for at least another 2 or 3 years.
It was also confirmed that Dan Spang and Jeff Brown will be returning on their university deals, but no news on Brian McGrattan, who was announced as being on a 2-year deal, but that has not been confirmed that he will be coming back for next season. So, Tina, very quickly, just on Spang and Brown, happy that they are back?
Yeah, I think so. Generally speaking, I mean, in terms of Chris Lawrence and his mates, I think we've kept the best of the 3,
without a doubt.
Yeah, so I mean, I like Brown. He's not flashy. He's not he's not showy off. He's not afraid to get in people's faces and drop the gloves if it comes to it. And Spang, I think, is I don't know. I think he has more potential than I think we saw completely in last season. But I do think he was also quite heavily lent on as well. I mean, Dan Spang always seemed to be on the ice. It was a bit odd, you sort of look up and something's going on, and whether it be us conceding or scoring, it just always seemed to be Spang that was there. So he can put the minutes in, which is good. And I think he was probably our top defenseman last season. So yeah, I think generally speaking, I think pretty. It's a solid base to begin with. To sort of start signing the imports around.
Okay. And Andy McGrattan, is it a case of no news is good news, or do you expect he won't be back?
I would have said no news is good news if I hadn't listened to that interview he did probably last month now, was it? Yeah. I don't think he'll be back. I'm fully anticipating that he won't be back over here. I got the impression that although he was keeping his options open, that he was perhaps looking at retirement, reading between the lines. So I don't know. I don't think he'll be back over here at all. So it's certainly not something that I'm sort of holding my breath for or hanging any hope on. So for me, I think McGrattan's sort of he's come across, he's done his job, and to me, he was fantastic at doing it. But I think that I think he's had his time here and he's done for the Elite League.
The first new signing to this Panthers roster was announced as Sam Gospel, who will be coming in as the new British backup netminder. Gospel, of course, is a Nottingham native and joins from the Telford Tigers. Tina, happy with that?
Yep. I'll sort of quantify the whole statement. I am very happy that Sam Gospel is coming in. I think it was the right time to make, possibly the right time, possibly a little bit overdue to make that particular change. I just hope that we learn from last season. We either failed or didn't want to manage 3 netminders. And so it put an awful lot of pressure on Dan Green when he had to come in after Miika Wiikman gets stretched off in the playoff quarterfinals. So we need to learn lessons from that. I think that Gospel is a very capable netminder. I think he has the potential to be, to be, I don't know, maybe possibly be a number 1 netminder. Whether it's for us or for somebody else in the Elite League, I think that we need to be careful that we don't strangle that potential. So I am very happy that Sam Gospel has come to be a Nottingham Panther, but we need to make sure that we use him effectively and that he is given the best opportunity possible to progress, because somewhere, sort of looking into the sort of wider picture, Team GB needs its next Ben Bounds.
Yeah, good, very good point. And Andy, Gospel, was you happy with that?
Yeah, definitely. I think with the rulings with regards to the under 23s, I kind of think that it perhaps meant that it was far more convenience, not quite the right word, but I think it's far more necessary for teams to have a young, up and coming, looking to make a name for themselves, get some training with some top class imports, that kind of thing. I think that it's the right time to go down that route with regarding a British backup netminder. I think that Gospel is a player that I fully agree. I think that he's got the capability to be an incredibly good goalkeeper for our league, down the line. But he's got to get plenty of ice time. He's got to get plenty of practice, and obviously he can get an awful lot of ice time at Telford, or he got an awful lot of ice time down at Telford, and in the leagues below. But realistically, particularly as we'll touch on later, no doubt, the quality gap now is so vast that, unfortunately, if you are going to be the next Ben Bounds or Stephen Murphy, then you've got to, in my opinion, I think you've got to sort of cut your mustard in the elite league and sort of push import netminders, because I don't think the quality at the moment will be there in our new second tier of UK hockey. So I'm thoroughly delighted with the signing because, like I say, I think he's got great potential. And I think with the ruling of the under-23s, I think it's a perfect time to do that. And I think a lot of people, when that was announced as a rule, I think a lot of people were sort of talking about, now is the time to perhaps, get a young netminder in, a young British netminder, because obviously he ticks that box, and it's an important box, and hopefully we'll see the next GB starter after Ben Bounds.
The first new import signing was Ukrainian number one netminder Edward Zakharchenko. He comes in as the backup import netminder, so effectively replacing Henry Passel. I've got his stats in front of me. For a 21-year-old netminder, his stats are incredibly impressive. In the Ukraine league for Kremenchuk, where he played last season, 26 games, a goals against average of 1.46 and a 94.6% save percentage. But this is the stat that stands out for me. In the recent World Championships, Division 1A, which Great Britain have been promoted to, he played 4 games in that tournament with a goals against average of 2.23 and a save percentage of 94.3%. Tina, I think we may have a gem on our hands here.
Yes. I should be really excited about that. However, just going back to the point that I was making beforehand with Gospel, when you have a netminder like that, who it appears we have signed as a backup, that puts an awful lot of a barrier in front of Sam Gospel. So, just sort of returning to that particular point, I like this guy's stats. I like that, he can already put up those kind of numbers, and I like that we are going out for these really good quality players. If we're going to have any hope of making any kind of competition, of bringing anything to the Champions Hockey League competition, then we have to be signing players of that sort of calibre. The only trepidation I have is, the sort of, is what it's going to do to Gospel. As long as the Panthers can manage all of it, as long as the Panthers can manage that rotation, then we're laughing. But it's the management of it. So I am cautiously excited about the kind of indication, that signing Zakharchenko is bringing to the Panthers team.
I mean, Andy, my personal opinion is that the signing of Zakharchenko has been brought in to push whoever comes in as number one netminder and really challenge them for that number one spot. Is that something you see, depending on who the number one netminder is?
Yeah, I do. I think this season, particularly after after last year, with regarding Miika's injuries and Passel coming in and replacing him, I'm sure, as many people will tell you, he was a lovely chap, but he wasn't overly good. in my opinion. He did a job, I suppose, but I don't think he was anywhere close to the sort of quality that we need or we should expect from an import netminder. And he's young, and he's got a lot of time to make a name for himself. But I just think that for us, I think particularly with the CHL, where I would imagine you would see both import netminders in the games, because I imagine there's no restrictions in the CHL games with regarding imports.
No.
You've got to have stellar netminders, and currently on paper at the moment, as far as goalie stats go, what you've read out is nothing short of fantastic. And I agree. I agree with you, Jono, but it will be very much a case of, at the start of the season, here is number one, here is number two, but give it a bad couple of games for goalie number one, and all of a sudden the boot gets put on the other foot, and from a to go on a slight tangent with my NHL team, New York Rangers, there was a spell where Lundqvist, who has arguably been one of the best netminders in the world for the last 10 years or so,
and showed it last Sunday.
Well, yeah, but he was arguably Rangers number two for a couple of months around January time, where Antti Ranta was the first choice, and it pushed him, it made him get better, and that's ultimately the job of a backup netminder. And I think in Zakharchenko, I think we should have a really good one, and it will be. For me, it will probably be the first time I've seen that kind of net-minding tandem, depending on who we get in as a starter, since probably the ISL days.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, on to netminders, obviously, with Sam Gospel coming in, that means no place for Dan Green, and he announced his retirement last week. Very quickly on this, I mean, Tina, you said it's probably been overdue, but you can't fault the years of service that Dan Green has given the Nottingham Panthers.
Oh, absolutely not. No, being the backup netminder in this league is a thankless task, and he's done it with dignity and poise. And he's had some good seasons where he's done a decent job. I think unfortunately this season has just highlighted the lack of confidence that the coaching staff had in him, in the sense that they only used him when they absolutely had to. It was kind of a we'll use you when our hand is forced, and that it was just it was awful to see him have to go out in the quarter-final after having had virtually zero game time to back it up. And I mean, Corey Nielsen said in an interview afterwards, I said to the guys that the first shot that Dan Green faces can't be a breakaway, and look what happened. Jonathan Phillips gets the puck, takes it, and just shoots it past him. So Dan Green has done a decent job in what is, as I say, a thankless task for anybody who is a British backup netminder. And he, I mean, what is he, in his 30s? Sort of heading towards his mid 30s. He's sort of been heading towards an age where he's he's sort of got to accept that he's probably not going to be a starting netminder, and he's definitely not going to be a starting netminder for the Nottingham Panthers. So he's sort of he's just done whatever has been asked of him, and you can't really ask for more than that of a person who you put in that position. So I think all that I would really say is thank you very much for doing what you did, and good luck in the future with whatever you decide to do. And if you do retain some kind of position with the Panthers, then all the best, because you obviously love this club, Dan.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Alex Nikiforuk and Matt Carter have been announced as joining Epinal in the French league. Andy, you're clearly sorry to see them go.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm just glad they're not back. Ultimately, I think Nikiforuk less so, but I didn't subscribe to the Nikiforuk fan club. But I just think that neither of them were as good as they should have. Well, as good as I expected. There's no denying Matt Carter's talents, but we saw them incredibly seldomly. And there was no denying Alex Nikiforuk's heart, but unfortunately, I just don't think he was good enough. I think they will suit the French league. Obviously, Carter's been there before, over there, so he knows what to expect. And good luck to them both. But I'm certainly not upset that they won't be wearing black and gold next year.
I've got to admit, I think we can do a lot better as well. Okay, moving on. Talking of netminders as we have been, early today I got a chance to chat to Miika Wiikman about his time at the Panthers. As you may know, netminder Miika Wiikman will not be coming back to the Panthers as was announced last month, but I'm delighted to say he is joining us tonight on the Cat's Whiskers podcast, so it's a very warm welcome to Miika Wiikman.
Thank you very much.
Great to have you on, Miika. Firstly, I just want to ask you, how have you recovered from the injury that you received in the final game of the season?
Right now I'm feeling pretty good, actually. Physically, there's no problems at all. Mentally, I feel normal, so yeah, it feels like I'm back to normal right now.
That's always good to know. And I suppose moving on to the news that you won't be coming back to the Panthers, was that a decision that surprised you?
Well, yes and no. We didn't have a good season, in my opinion, especially in the league and in the cup and in the playoffs. Obviously, we won the Continental Cup, which was a good thing. But other than that, I don't think we played that well, and I kind of saw it coming that maybe they want a bigger change for next season. So, at the same time, when you get that email or text or whatever, in which way you usually get it or call, it always surprises you though. But this time I kind of knew it.
How did you feel at the time? And now you've had a 2 or 3 weeks to reflect on it. How do you feel now?
Well, first I was disappointed. I wanted to stay. I love playing for a club and everything. So obviously it was a big disappointment at the beginning. But right now I'm trying to look forward. I'm working out as hard as I can here back in Finland, and my agent is looking for a job for me somewhere. So we'll see. We'll see what's gonna happen. And I can't really think about what's been and what's going to be. I'm just trying to live in the moment. It's all I can do.
One of the things that has been said, certainly by some of the fan base here in Nottingham, was that they felt you was injury prone. Do you feel that's a fair assessment?
Not really. For first season I had some problem with my groin there, and we couldn't really find the problem. And last season we actually found the problem, and the result was that I missed one game because of injury, and that's it. All the other games I missed because I was sick, having a fever, flu, stuff like that. Or obviously I had the thing that happened back home here in the autumn, and I had to come back here for a funeral and stuff like that. And that's just stuff that I as I said back then, family comes first, and that was something I had to do. So me being injury prone, I don't think that really is a fair assessment. Not if you look at the last season.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, you've already said how much you loved your time in Nottingham, and there was plenty of highlights for you. So what were the main highlights for you during your couple of seasons?
No, obviously winning trophies. I mean, we had some characters on these two teams that I've been on, and it's been amazing. You know, all the people I got to know in Nottingham, not just players, fans, sponsors, everything. And just everyone was so nice to me and my family, and for that I'm forever grateful. And you know, it's something I'm gonna keep with me for the rest of my life.
Nottingham became the first British team to win the Continental Cup, in no small part due to your performances in Italy in the final. How do you feel as far as an achievement that was? You've already said it wasn't the greatest season domestically last season, but that must stand out as a pretty special achievement.
Yeah, it's always an honor to be part of history. You know, it was something that no one expected us to do, and we still did it. And you know, as I said, that's just one of those memories I'm gonna remember for the rest of my life.
And just finally, what does the future hold? Do you think a return to the Elite League is likely next season, albeit with a different team?
Oh, you know what, Jono? At this point, it's so hard to tell. I have no idea what's going on out in Europe. So it's been pretty quiet. That's all I can say. I haven't really heard anything from anywhere. So I'm still waiting for some offers and for my agent to come back to me with some info on what's going on.
It sounds like your daughter requires your attention.
It's all right. My wife is home now, so she can take care of it.
I'll just finish by saying thank you very, very much for everything you gave to the club for the past couple of years. And is there anything that you would like to say to the fans through us?
Yeah, obviously, thank you for all your support. And I mean, it's so easy especially to play on the home ice. You know, the crowd is fantastic in Nottingham. It's something I've never experienced before anywhere. Not in Finland, not in North America, nowhere. So I just want to thank everyone for supporting me and the team, and you know, even off the ice. Thank you so much for helping us whenever we needed help.
Miika, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you in Nottingham for the past 2 seasons, and thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure was all mine, Jono.
Many thanks to Miika for taking the time to speak to us earlier today. And guys, you know, what a player. I mean, it's generally down to him, I would say, or he plays a very large part in the reason that we won 3 trophies in the past 2 seasons.
Tina, go for it.
I was waiting for you. I was being polite.
It's the first time for everything, folks.
Hey, yeah. I mean, one of the things that I think I wrote about Miika in our end of season review last year was, you know, he had a very difficult job because he was having to come in the shadow of Craig Kowalski, which, you know, that was not going to be an easy task for anybody, and he just sort of, you know, got his head down and got on with it. There was a photo, I think it was. Was it Corey Nielsen's testimonial? And there's like Miika Wiikman and Kowalski stood at the after party, and Wiikman's got a look on his face as if to say, like, who's this guy? You know, and it was quite funny. But yeah, I'll come back from my tangent. Wiikman is a very good goalie, and I don't think he will have too many problems finding employment elsewhere. And he's done a very good job for us. Like, I mean, you know, as he says in the interview, you know, he has been accused of being. What's the word? I've lost my thread. He has been accused of being injury prone, but when you sort of break down, you know, the times he wasn't playing this season, it's precious little have been to do with actual, you know, on ice injuries. So
I think he said he missed 1 game because of injury.
Yeah. So I mean, it seems possibly it's either a misconception or just, an assumption that because he isn't on the ice that he is injured, when he's sort of been unwell and he's had a family issue to attend to and what have you. So, I think I think that obviously the club have decided that, that we want to go better. We want more. We possibly, I think the netminding tandem of Wiikman and Zakharchenko would have been an interesting one, because I think that both Zakharchenko and Gospel would have been pushing Wiikman pretty well, and it would have been fascinating to watch that battle unfurl between the three netminders, and to see who genuinely did get the number one spot. If you always know who your starting netminder is, but as Andy alluded to earlier with Lundqvist, you can always, it can always change. Your number one is not necessarily always your number one. But yeah, Wiikman has been a great goaltender. He has, and especially this past season, he's been the reason behind us winning games. When the rest of the team have just not been switched on. There's countless games where we've had our conversation between us in our WhatsApp group where we've gone, how are we not 7, 8, 9 goals down? And the answer is Wiikman.
If you do want to get in touch with us, what do you think of the roster so far? What do you think of what Miika had to say? You can do Twitter at CatsWhiskersTV. We will read out as many tweets as we can. If you are listening live, we would love you to get in touch with us. Just something else on our own social media front. If you remember, we had the TCW Panthers fan survey that Paul produced. The results have now been analysed, and there will be a article published on Friday on our website with all the results from that survey. Andy, you've had a look through it, and we've obviously been privy to it, and you won't see it till Friday, but we have seen it. And Andy, there's some pretty interesting stats on there.
Yeah, there really is. I mean, obviously, the way that the questions were sort of categorised and things like that, it's really interesting to see the split between many different sort of parameters, whether it be males and females, or my particular two that I thought were particularly telling were the ages and the how long have you been going to the games. I think they're the two sort of really telling points and telling cases with regards the answers. So yeah, there's some really interesting stuff, and hopefully people will get out of it what they want to get out of it. And it is, like I say, genuinely, it is really interesting.
Last Wednesday, the Champions Hockey League draw was made in Cologne, and Panthers were drawn against SC Bern of Switzerland, TPS Turku of Finland, and Mountfield HK of the Czech Republic. Cardiff Devils, who are also in the same pot as us, they were drawn against HC Davos of Switzerland, Vaxo Lakers of Sweden, and Billy Tigri Liberec, I hope I said that correctly, of the Czech Republic. Tina, what did you think of the draw? Do you think either team can get some wins out of those?
Sorry, it's going to be tough. The calibre of teams, they all come from, pretty good hockey countries. I mean, we know firsthand what it's like to face a Finnish and a Swedish team, because we got absolutely legendarily humped by them, if I recall correctly. It was, you just sort of gave up on the idea that you were going to get anything from the game, and you just sort of sat back and just watched some absolute quality hockey in your own barn. It was it was a pleasure and a and a depression all at once. You're sort of like you just you're watching your team just getting absolutely thumped, and but my God, was there some good hockey going on? Yeah, it's gonna be tough. The one thing I would say is that we've had a couple of seasons now embracing four-line hockey where Whereas I don't think we were really sort of clued up on it the first time we went into the CHL. The only game that we won against Hamburg, we had we sort of drafted the kid line in, as it became known, and they performed very well, and the team obviously performed very well, and Lakovic scored that goal. You never know. I mean, we didn't really expect to get anything out of that. We wanted to, and we were sort of right in what we said at the time. In the German team were the team that we were going to get anything out of if we got anything at all. So I think for both us and the Devils, I would possibly say that if we're going to get anything out of anybody, it may be the Czech teams, and I would say that probably for each of our. Each of our respective elite league teams, if I'm honest. But I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't. I think we just have to take it one game at a time and try not to get rabbit in the headlights ish.
I do think that at home against the Swiss teams, I saw Davos against Rouen last season, and Rouen took them to overtime. Steelers got that famous victory against Red Bull Salzburg last season at 5-2 and destroyed them, to be fair. So I think at home against the Swiss teams we may have a chance. I think the Czech teams, certainly there's an opportunity, maybe home and away, but we'll have to see. I think Turco will be too much for us, as will Vaxo Lakers for Cardiff. But Andy, how do you see it?
I can't see either team getting a win, if I'm honest. I think the standard is very difficult. I think from a Cardiff fan perspective, I don't know whether I'd be wanting an NHL lockout or not. If you're going with the... don't get me wrong, there's no talks of it before people start questioning it, but obviously Davos is famously one of the lockout hotbeds. I think they've had Rick Nash, Patrick Kane, Joe Thornton, to name a few. So I mean, they're a team that can attract. Again, I appreciate it's for lockout, but they are a team that attracts a caliber of player, and I think that. Out of the 6 teams that have been drawn against the elite league teams, I think they're certainly probably the biggest name, as it were, because of that. Whether that means they're the best, I would imagine that'll go to Vaxo, in my opinion. I think the Swedish league is the best league involved in the CHL. I think it's no surprise that Frölunda have won it the past 2 years, and I think it's no surprise that when we were last in it, that it was the Swedish team that humped us home and away.
Yeah, Luleå, who went on to win it that season as well.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, we lost relatively comfortably against the Finnish team, but the home game, I think it was 4-2.
Yeah,
it might even have been an empty net goal if I remember correctly. And it's not really that much of a humping, but I think Luleå was 9-2. I remember.
It was 10-1 at home and 9-1 away.
Yeah, so the Swedish league is a little cut above, shall we say? So I think Vaxo will be the big team that one of our teams will play. But personally, I just can't see either ourselves or the Devils getting a win currently at the moment. Obviously, if both teams sign a ridiculous roster full of superstars, then who knows? But currently, as it stands, I can only see 3 losses.
Very quickly to both of you, either of you planning on taking in any of the away games at all?
No.
I wish. I wish. No, I I'm still suffering with a financial hangover from more domestic matters. So I think I may have to, unless I win the lottery or unless somebody takes pity on me, then I think I'll be watching via a webcast or Premier Sports or by whoever chooses to cover it.
So if you would like to set up a crowdfunding site to get Tina to the Champions Hockey League, I'm sure she would appreciate it. I am hoping to get to Bern, but we will see. Again, depending on finances.
Realistically, we should surely be looking for a Kickstarter for the TCW team to get to out there. Not just
I like it. I like your thinking, Andy. You're a team player. I love it.
That's just favouritism, surely.
Well, if you would like to take Andy up on his suggestion, I'm sure we'd all be incredibly grateful.
My bank balance would be supremely grateful.
Just one more thing before we leave Panthers altogether, and I think we need to pay credit to the club for their social media presence in this off-season. The amount of competitions, the interaction, the way that signings have been announced, and we was discussing it earlier, and it just seems to have gone up a notch, and it's really great to see.
Yep. Off-season is traditionally, the sort of quiet time where hockey teams go into hibernation, and I think the growing social media presence of various hockey teams is you're having to keep up. I think that's kind of how it's been, and Callum and Eddie have had a year to sort of work together, grow into this sort of role and grow the role itself. So from what we can see at the moment, that is coming. I mean, compare it to last off season where there was almost nothing. It was like it was a tweet sort of 5 minutes before a signing, and then that's your lot. I think they've done a lot of good work. We've sort of berated them and picked them up a little bit on various bits and bobs that have happened during the season, and I'm sure I apologise, Callum and Eddie, but we're probably going to continue to pick you up on your spelling and grammar mistakes, but that's just par for the course. It seems to be a social media thing, but it's because we care. It is genuinely because we care. We're not having a go because we want to. It's because we care. We want our team to do the best that they can, both on and off the ice, and I think that they're doing a good job.
And Andy, I'll come to you. Just your thoughts as we leave the Panthers news. Just your thoughts on the team so far. Are you optimistic, about the same, or do you want to see a few more signings yet?
Well, I think ultimately of the players that we've got, I think we could be relatively happy with. I didn't get to chip in on the Spang and Brown thing, but I think Brown thoroughly happy with coming back. Spang, for me, I'm kind of hoping that he's sort of, like Tina alluded to, sort of fallen foul to the obscene minutes that he was receiving because everybody else was rubbish. I've no problem with him coming back. I know a few people are unhappy with his return, but I think the Brits coming back is huge. I think the new signings that we've made, particularly the under-23s, are exciting looking. And as we've alluded to with the netminder, he looks like he could be a real gem. So as it stands at the moment, I'm very happy. Obviously, if we sign Jan Krulis and Robin Nick and players like that, then no, I'm not very happy with the team. But realistically, at this current stage, I think we're in a really good position. And obviously as leagues start to end around the world, then hopefully the import signings will start to pick up a bit.
I mean, I am really optimistic. I've got a really, really good feeling, and that will probably go away by once the season starts. But at the minute, really good feeling. I think we've upgraded with regards to Gospel and certainly Zakachenko. I'm happy with the Brit signings, like you say, the under-23 signings, both exciting prospects, and I just feel really, really optimistic about the new season. And anything that makes me forget last season is fine by me. But I really have got a good feeling at the moment about next season and us challenging on all fronts. So I'm really eager to see now who these import signings are, and hopefully we will be up there challenging on all fronts next season. Okay, so that is leaving the Panthers behind. We're going to look at some of the other Elite League news that's been happening in the past few weeks. And probably the biggest news is that Adam Keefe has been named the head coach of Belfast. I mean, Andy, that's no surprise really, but what do you think of that appointment?
To be honest, I think I quite like it. I appreciate that he's a rookie. He's inexperienced, but I think he's sort of, if they were going to go down that route of having an inexperienced person, I think he's by far the right person. He's the right kind of person. He's the right kind of leader, and obviously he knows the team inside out. He knows the league well. He knows what's expected. So I think it's a decent signing. I think it's as much as obviously. It wasn't even really rumoured. It was sort of it was common knowledge, really, that it was going to be Adam Keefe. But it was one of the things where I think initially I sort of thought, wow, that seems a bit strange. Why would they go for someone, as a rookie for a team like Belfast? But, I think the more I sort of thought about it, the more I think it makes sense. And obviously they've got quite a really good sort of network of off ice that will help him, and I think it could be a very good move for Belfast, and he's certainly a character that I like seeing in the league. So from a personal standpoint, I'm quite happy with it. So and I think overall, I think the Belfast fans are pretty happy, and they're the ones that ultimately he's got to impress. So I think it's a pretty decent signing, but obviously time will tell.
I mean, Tina, the pressure's on him because this is a team that's won nothing for 3 seasons, so he's going to be under pressure to bring some silverware.
Yes, I would say so. I mean, in terms of an appointment, let me put this the right way. It's good for morale because everybody in British in the Elite League in British ice hockey perhaps knows what Adam Keefe means to the Belfast Giants. He is their guy. He is the guy. So the appointment makes sense. It's a bold move, I think, because you wouldn't expect a team of Belfast's size to once again go with, because I don't know, is he still going to be playing?
I believe not. Only in emergencies.
Okay. Well, yeah, but I mean, they said that Brandon Benedict was only going to play in emergencies, and look how well that went. So, that could be that'll be a sort of time will tell kind of effort. But yeah, I mean, I'm not a Belfast Giants fan, so I respect Adam Keefe, as he's like get the ding out, plays the game the right way. He's a player that I think has garnered an awful lot of respect for the way he's played the game, but he's not he's not a Nottingham Panthers player or coach, so I hope he fails. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. No, I wish him the best of luck, and I hope that it sort of works out for them, kind of in the way they want it to. But no, Belfast, no trophies for you. I don't want any trophies for you because I'm a Panthers fan.
Fair enough. Talking about moving on to our orange friends up the road, and Guillaume Desbiens retired, which caused a bit of a odd overreaction from them, don't you think, Andy?
Oh, I thought something else had happened entirely.
Tina is a big player. I'm going to move away from that.
You don't need to send a wreath, Andy. It's all right.
It's a big blow for them, though, in fairness, because he was a very important part of their side.
Well, yeah, he was a very important part of their side because he was one of those. I knew of Dabian when he arrived because I during the last lockout I was watching an awful lot of AHL hockey on ESPN when they were still recognising that hockey existed. So I was aware of him, and he didn't make. He didn't make the impact I expected him to make. He's very sort of, just workmanlike. Just sort of got on with it, contributed, wasn't a superstar or anything like that. He just did a job. He did it pretty well. So, he was a good fit for the team. So, the trouble is, with our league. There's only so long that we can, keep the good players away from the real world because, by the time they come over here, normally they are looking to the future and, they're sort of keeping one eye on the job offers in the real world. So, and that's exactly what's happened here. He's had a good job offer. Can't turn it down. It may not come around again in 2 years' time when his contracts when the contract would have been up with the Sheffield Steelers. So, you have to take the opportunities as they present themselves, and that's just what he's done. But yeah, he did a decent job for the Steelers, and yes, I'm sure they're all a little bit upset about that.
Andy, Steelers have announced the signings of Mark Matheson and Jonas Westerling, both 35 years old. They've kept or retained a big percentage of their roster from last season. And the thing I keep thinking about is, are they making similar errors to what we did when we finished 5th, retained most of the side, and didn't bring in good enough replacements? Are the Steelers doing the same thing? Because they finished 3rd.
Yeah,
they won the playoffs, but I just get that feeling with them. It's not I usually fear the Steelers and what they're signing, but I look at what they've got so far, and nothing really fills me with much trepidation.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and I think that some of that comes with familiarity, as much as anything else. I still think that annoyingly they will be there or thereabouts at the end of the season, because they always are. But I do know exactly what you mean. It is a team that finished 3rd, and they're a team that sort of demand to finish 1st. So it will be seen as a bad season for them in that regards. And obviously, yes, the playoffs sort of helps ease that sort of pain. But ultimately, it's the league that they will want. And obviously, Tomo knows that, and O'Connor knows that. So. It is quite interesting because I do think that some of the players that they had weren't that good. And better than ours. But I do think that some of them weren't overly worth keeping, shall we say? Some of them definitely were. I thought is Valdix back next year?
I believe he is.
Yeah,
I would double check that, but keep talking.
I really liked him whenever we played him. He seemed to be one of their better players. Obviously, what you're getting with War. I do think that he wasn't as effective. I think again only on the times that I saw them at our arena. I don't think he was as effective as he was. That doesn't make him a bad player. He's still a very good player, and he's still, one of them players that you love to hate because he plays the game in a certain style that when it's against you, you absolutely loathe it. But you've probably got one on your own team. I just think that they obviously have made a couple of changes and we brought in a couple of new guys. you say they're both 35, but on the photo that we released, I'm not convinced about Matheson.
Yeah. I think that the phrase I saw a couple of times yesterday was Andy Sertich's granddad.
Yeah, I mean, serious. But he's got decent stats, so he's going to be of a certain caliber, I would imagine. But yeah, I'm not convinced he's 35.
Somebody had our paper around him.
Just on Val Dixon, he's not confirmed as coming back at the moment, so he may.
Well, in my opinion, I wouldn't mind seeing him in a Panthers shirt. I thought he was one of their better players last season. But I think they will. I think they will replace Desbians. He was very good, and he was a player that I would have liked to have seen in the Panthers shirt. But I suppose ultimately you just have to thank God that you were around to see him over here.
Moving on to the new teams. The Milton Keynes Lightning have signed Kyle Essery and Kevin King from Gap and Guillaume Doucet from Cardiff, which is
mind the Gap.
Yes, as we know all too well. Guildford also signing Mike Ratchuk from the Steelers, so the new guy starting their recruitment, and Doucet, that's a big signing from Cardiff, big signing for Milton Keynes.
Massive. I think, to be honest, I think both teams have made a real statement of intent with those two signings. I think Doucet and Ratchuk, I think they're real sort of stand up and look at us, because we're not here to make the numbers up. I just think that realistically, I think that's two fantastically good signings to make first off. Because already it lets people know your intentions, and we knew before he went to Cardiff, how much we were going to miss Doucet.
Well, that's one thing I was just thinking. I mean, if Doucet was looking to leave, I'd be a little bit disappointed if we hadn't at least made inquiries.
Well, yeah.
But the thing is, it's what can Milton Keynes offer him? I mean, the thing is, at Milton Keynes, he's going to be the guy, the go-to guy. Is he necessarily going to have that at the Panthers?
Yeah, well, but yeah, I appreciate that. But as I say, if he was looking to leave Cardiff, I'd be disappointed if we hadn't at least, sort of inquired about the possibility. But obviously, he's a Lightning player now, so that's by the by, really.
We might have done.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. I mean, obviously, that's something we'll never know. But it just from the goals that he scored in his short time with us. You just know what you're getting with a player like Doucet, because that's what he does. I mean, he sort of said it himself at the awards night that year, and because Gary Moran was interviewing him and that, and he said, you scored some good goals. He said, well, that's what I do. He said that's all I do. So if I don't score goals, then I'm useless. So, which was an interesting way to sum yourself up.
Edinburgh have confirmed that they are looking for a bench coach rather than a player coach this season, but still no signings for them at present. And Fife have retained Todd Dutiem as head coach and Jeff Hutchins as assistant. Some breaking news as we have been on air, and that is the Manchester Storm have announced completion of their takeover. Glaswegian businessman Gordon Gregg, who I believe is known to the Brayhead clan, he has stepped up and he will be the new owner of the Storm. As I say, it's breaking news. I'm just sort of reading off the Elite League website, and obviously it just says it was unanimously approved by the Elite League board. And a new chapter lies ahead for one of the newer teams in the league. I suppose that was hanging over them a bit, Andy, because I don't think they made any signings as yet. So it's good to get this out of the way, and now they can get on with planning for next season.
Definitely. And I think there'll be another team that will make a couple of signings that perhaps will make people, open their eyes a little bit. I think the year on year since Manchester have come in, they've improved, and I think that we'll see another improvement on them in this season coming up, especially now that they've got that sort of, not necessarily sideshow, but now that that's been sorted, they can look at getting on to doing what they do best.
Okay, we will leave the Elite League there and move into the NIHL. It was a surprise when the Nottingham Lions were announced as moving up to the NIHL 1 North Division in the recent reshuffle after the demise of the EPL. Earlier today, I caught up with Lions coach Matt Bradbury, who gave us the lowdown. Delighted to welcome to the podcast the head coach of the Nottingham Lions, Matt Bradbury. A warm welcome to you, Matt.
Hi, John. How are you? Okay?
Very good, thank you. Thanks for joining us on this show. And I suppose the first question I want to put to you is why the jump now?
Well, it was all about an opportunity that had risen to make that step. There's no doubt, looking at the teams and the standard, that we were really going to be having to up the ante. But that chance, sometimes you don't get those chances very often, and we just thought it was the most sensible thing to do was to take that opportunity, just like we did back when the Lions were in the EPL in 2000. And I'm still here, and it still seems a long time ago. But what the key was then was to play at the highest level we possibly can, and that opportunity arose because Sutton moved down into Division 2. I'm obviously aware that maybe other teams didn't want to make that step, but we knew that the games that we were going to have to play, the number of games, which was going to be 36, and the amount of buses that we'd have to take was going to be of a similar amount at the same cost. So why not take ourselves and be in the second tier of British ice hockey?
I mean, you're going to be facing some stiff competition. You've obviously got the Hull Pirates and the Sheffield Steel Dogs, who were previously in the EPL. Teams like the Billingham Stars, Whitley Warriors, Solway Sharks, who've been very successful over recent seasons, Solihull Barons. These are some storied names in British ice hockey, so you're really testing yourself.
Absolutely, all top teams, all with budgets. And all with good crowds, good fan bases, and absolutely, why not? You know what I mean? It's for me. I've always wanted to challenge the players from Nottingham, from within the junior system. Always want to challenge yourself to be the best. There's no point in going through the motions. If we're going to do it, we may as well do it big.
Your players are still paid to play. I'm right in thinking that, aren't I?
Yep, the players will pay to play, and that's what they've done. That's what it's always been. The positive about that has always been that the players wear their hearts on their sleeves, and it means something to them, and they go out and they give it their all. And that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is we will obviously be out there looking for players that may not have jobs or may not be picking up big paychecks or bigger paychecks in the EPL, because those the NIHL one, because those monies aren't there to be had.
I mean, from that respect, because obviously a lot of the teams will be paying their players, as you've already alluded to. So how do you compete with those teams? I mean, will you actually be bringing some players in with a view to paying them? Or, I mean, I'm right in thinking that it's a 2 import limit. Is that correct?
2 imports, one on the ice at each time. But we'll be putting together hopefully a group of players that know Nottingham and have come through Nottingham ranks that are, have played at that level. We need established players, and we're already in conversation with those type of players that we're after. But we'll probably be looking for probably 5 or 6 players, just like really, other teams in the division. They will have their core base of players. and they'll be looking to pick up. I'm sure it won't necessarily be an auction for definite, because those teams aren't going to pay it either. They don't have the budgets as well, especially some of the wages that were being paid in the former EPL. So we'll be looking at players that, are now working for a living, going to, on apprenticeships or on, working lives, or at college or university in the area. So yeah, we've got a list of what we like, and if we can get those players that are on our wish list, then we'll be quite comfortable in the team we'll put together.
I mean, we was talking before we started the interview about the costs that are involved with running a team like the Lions. And as you say, it's reliant on fans coming through the door, paying their money. I mean, at £5, it's going to be one of the cheapest teams to watch in that league. So how do you go about attracting more people to come and watch you?
I suppose it's through the social media avenues, through websites, word of mouth. Hopefully there'll be some Panthers fans that will come across, and they'll see a good product, and that's what we can guarantee: put a good product, a feisty product, a competitive product, and something that we have to work just as hard as a pro team, even though we're all volunteers. We put together our training sessions and the way that we want to play and the way we have to set our stall out. Just like a pro team, we have problems within our camp, just like every other team has to, but we have to sort those out. So we do that because we obviously want to offer opportunity to the players within our own Nottingham setup without them having to go to a Peterborough or a Hull as previously, and Telford's, as players have done in the past. But it's key really that we try and spread that word. I mean, like we were talking about earlier, if the honesty is that last season our gate was 50 people paying through our gate per game. We had 14 games last year. If you start doing your maths, that's not many people coming to watch us. So we're hopefully, if we could just, it would make such a big difference if we could get an extra 50. So if we could get 100 people coming through our gate, then that will help to offset some of the losses and things like that. But ultimately, we have two choices. We could have played in the Division 2 next season, or we could stay in the Division, we could make that push to the Division 1. The costs would have been exactly the same. The on-costs would have been the same. We'd still be travelling. We'd still have the referees' costs. We'd still have the ice high costs, etc., etc. So why not do it playing at the highest level we possibly can?
And also, now you are one level under the Panthers. Panthers, obviously, the Elite League. The EIHL is now the new Tier 2. You're in the top of that tier. So what about links to the Nottingham Panthers? Because as I understand it, Joe Hazeldine, one of your players, has been training with the Panthers recently.
Yeah, that's right. Joe's a top prospect. He's been a top prospect all the way through his junior days, and just like some of the players we've had before that have unfortunately either moved on or fell by the wayside. We talked about previous players like Conor Glossop and all these other players, like even Sam Gospel, who returns next season with the Panthers. Those players, Weldon Bowley, Saw, Tom Norton, Greg Pick, Lakovic, all these guys have come through this junior system, and there's no reason why it shouldn't continue to have the odd one or two players that get the opportunity to train with the Panthers. But now, obviously, Joe Hazeldine doesn't need to go away to another EPL team. It's on his doorstep, and he can make that transition. Having said that, in the real terms, we have players coming through our program, and every child's dream is, the first dream is to play in the NHL. The next dream is to play for the Panthers. But realistically, the amount that would play is very, very small. So the next level and the next opportunity is the Lions, because it's the top of the junior club. We're honest, and we try and be realistic with the players. Everybody wants to play in the NHL or with the Panthers, but ultimately, to survive financially, they have to go to work. They have to go to college or university to get the qualifications, because long term, the expectation is that they're going to, start a family, have a house, have a car, mortgage, etc. It's the real terms is they need to put some money in their pockets, and that probably won't be enough doing it just by playing ice hockey. So we hope that the opportunity of playing for the Lions at the highest level they possibly can, and still doing that with work and college commitments, training once a week, still high tempo, high level, and also at the highest level they possibly can, will fulfill that expectation and that excitement, and still allow them to continue to play ice hockey that they love to do.
One final question for you, and as I've already said, you're going to be facing some stiff competition in this league. What would you class as a successful season for you?
We've got targets. Obviously there's certain teams and certain games we will set to try and pick off points. There will be teams that we can pick off, and obviously it's survival to not finish in the bottom two and be relegated. That will ultimately be the main aim. But if we can pick off those extra points here and there and make our home games count, then hopefully we could do even better than we probably expect ourselves, and people definitely and doubters will expect. And it'd be great to finish middle of the pack and see where it takes us from there. But it's going to take some hard work and graft. But I know that we'll definitely, the coaching staff, the management, and the players. The really interesting thing was the response we've already had from the players. They're so excited to be getting this opportunity. Nobody expected it, and it will really hopefully spur us on to pulling together a strong team for next season.
Matt, I want to thank you very much for your time, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Appreciate your help, John. Thank you.
Many thanks to Matt for his time there. So, quite interesting, Tina. They've taken a big step up. There's some big teams that they'll be playing, so it's a risk. But, as he said, the costs are going to be the same whether they're in the second level or the first level. So why not test yourselves?
Yeah, and I think it's good that they are, they're showing that ambition. And Matt was saying that the players themselves are, they're excited at the challenge. It's the thing that sort of it just throws it all into sharp focus. Really how much the gap is now. I mean, Matt was talking there about the players pay to play. And you're looking at that's the next tier in British ice hockey. If you believe like elite prospects jobs, we're sort of looking to pay players sort of 20-30 grand for a season, and these guys who are the next level down are actually paying money. They're paying money out to do the same thing essentially, albeit at a slightly lower level. But they are. That's an awful lot of commitment, and you're assuming they're buying their own kit, they're getting themselves to training and then getting themselves to the games. The games can sometimes be played at an absolutely ridiculous time of day, because because of the demands on the ice time on the ice rinks in the arena. They must really, really love it. I think from what I get from ice hockey players, they play because they love it. But I think it takes an extra special level of commitment to do this and actually pay for it. So it does throw into sharp focus, what the sort of gulf that we are now dealing with in terms of the two tiers of British ice hockey, if you will. I know the EIHL have got the top conference and then the EIHL 2, but it's going to be a very strange time, I think, for British ice hockey. I think there's an awful lot to be done. There's an awful lot of work to be done, and I have absolutely no idea where to go with that particular point. But good luck to them. Good luck to the Lions. I hope they do really well. I hope that the ambition is rewarded. I really would like them to do well. The other interesting thing is, with the EIHL now no longer being in place, and the Lions being present in the next tier of British ice hockey, does it not make sense for the Panthers to foster some kind of link? Does it? I mean,
as you mentioned, Joe Hazeldine is training with the Panthers. He's a Lions regular. I think I do think they would like to see a few more probably making that link, but Panthers have announced that they have forged a link with Okanagan and the Swindon Wildcats. Yeah. But what harm would it do? I mean, it's right on your doorstep, and they're now in the next level below. I mean, Andy, that it surely makes sense.
It would be easy for the players, I think, but and it would be nice, I suppose, for that sort of progression chain. But I think ultimately, so long as we have a farm team of some sort, I'm not overly concerned where it is. It's not. We're not a massive country, but it's you can probably get to most places with a rink within 3 hours. So yes, it would be very nice, and I would imagine that if particularly if Nottingham make a fist of it and do really well in this league, then I wouldn't be surprised if down the line we do see some links forged, because, like you say, it does kind of make sense. But I think currently at the moment, I kind of like what we've done, because the players that we've signed, the under-23s that we've signed from Okanagan.
You try commentating on it when you've never said it before.
Yeah. It's okay. They look like they're going to be very good for us. So ultimately, so long as we can get some good players, I'm not really bothered where they come from.
Okay. Just one other thing, if you are in need of a hockey fix, then you will get one this weekend at EIHL Sheffield. On Friday night at 8 o'clock, it is the England-Scotland Under-19 International. Entry is free, and some of the Great Britain squad will be there with the trophy that they won recently in Belfast. So get yourself down there. It should be a cracking game. And then also it is the conference finals over Saturday, Sunday and Monday. A 3-day pass is £20 for adults, £10 for children. A day ticket, £10 for adults, £5 for children. 5 regions compete: Scotland, the North, South East, South West and the Midlands. Plenty of Nottingham juniors represented in the Midlands teams at under 11, under 13, under 15 and under 17. Games start at 7 a.m. every day and will finish around 10 o'clock. So quite a lot of hockey for your buck there. So get yourselves down to EIHL Sheffield and see some great quality hockey for a very, very good price, and free on Friday night. And we've been going for just over an hour and a half, so I think it's almost time to leave it there. So all that's left for me to say is a very, very big thank you to Andy Haywood.
It's all any time.
And also to Tina Taylor.
Cheers, TCFN.
Finally, before we go, we do want to make reference to the awful events on Monday night. The Manchester Arena is well known to many hockey fans as the former home of the Manchester Storm, Manchester Phoenix and of course the playoff finals weekend. Monday's act of atrocity shocked us all, not only for its barbarism but because it targeted innocent, defenceless children who were out enjoying themselves at a concert. We want to send our thoughts and love to the people of Manchester and all those affected by Monday's tragedy. Finally, before we go, one last thing. Tell those close to you that you love them and give them a tighter hug tonight. Until next time, thanks for listening and we'll speak to you soon.